Alright guys, so in this video we are going to be talking about Fuji's new announced and released camera, the Fuji XT4. Now if you've been following my YouTube channel for a while, you know that I tested the XT3 against the Pocket 4K, and I gotta say, I was actually pretty impressed with the Fuji XT3, even though it was the first Fuji camera I've ever used ever. So what we're going to talk about today is just this new camera. We're going to go over some of the old features it has and some of the new ones that it has. So let's go ahead and get started. Now I do have some notes here, so I'm sorry if I'm looking down, but I just want to make sure I got everything that I wanted to talk about. Let's go ahead and talk about what has not changed with this new Fuji X-T4 camera from the older version, the X-T3. First up, it is going to be shooting 4K up to 60 frames per second, but only in all intro 400 megabits a second. And when shooting in 60 frames per second, you are going to get a little bit of cropping on your frame or video. It is going to have an LCD touchscreen on the back of the camera, and it is going to be using the same exact sensor and processor technology as the Fuji X-T3. So that's what was the same with the old camera. Pretty much, I summarized it. So let's talk about the new things, the new features about this camera, which is pretty much gonna determine whether you are gonna want to upgrade to this camera if you already have the Fuji X-T3. So first up, that it's really big. Really the headliner for this camera is that it will come with IBIS or in-body image stabilization. So the next thing that changed about the new camera is that it has bigger batteries, which technically supposed to mean more battery life, but if you have IBIS on, you do have to keep that in account. It is going to be using a little bit more juice than the previous camera without IBIS. So keep that in mind. So the next new thing about this camera is that it's going to have a new profile, color profile, which is a bleach bypass. Now, if you have a Fuji X-T3 right now, you know that the Eterna color profile is just amazing. Like if I were to say there's one color profile out there that looks filmic right out of the box, that's the Fuji Eterna. So with this new camera, they are gonna have a new color profile, the Fuji Eterna Bleach Bypass, which is kind of like the Saving Private Ryan color profile, if you remember that movie a long time ago. So the next change they did with this camera was the LCD screen. They made it so that you can flip it and tilt it, whatever and however you want it, which is really nice for stuff like this when it's just me and I need somebody to focus me or something like that, or I would need to see myself from framing. So that's really nice, and I'm glad Fuji they actually really listen to their customers, which is pretty cool. So this camera, the Fuji X-T4, will also come with dual slot SD cards, so you can be recording the same video on 2 cards so that you have a backup. That's kind of cool that they went with 1 to 2, which is becoming more standard nowadays anyways. Okay, another cool thing they added with this camera is the F-Log View Assist. So if you don't know what that is, basically if you're shooting F-Log, it's hard to gauge exposure, it's very hard to gauge focus. So now you can actually opt to turn on and off. So with the Fuji X-T4, you can now turn on the F-Log View Assist, which really lets you record and log, but on the back of the screen it shows you contrast like you're shooting Rec 709. That's a really good addition to this camera, because I remember a couple of years ago when I was shooting with a Fuji X-T3, I would actually have to go to stills mode, set my exposure, set my focus, and then switch to video mode and have F-Log on and then press record. All right, another thing they added was the 240 frames per second in HD mode. Now, in my opinion, these kind of settings in these cameras are really not usable, but that's just my opinion. They just crop it so much. You just lose so much quality. I've shot it with a 1DX Mark III. I've shot it with the Sonys. These lower resolution, high frame rate settings are just, I don't know, just not used to me. But if you were into that kind of stuff, if you need to shoot your cats at 240 frames per second in high definition, the Fuji X-T4 will definitely have that option for you. Okay, so the next cool thing that they added about this camera is just really small stuff. But whenever you're recording in manual focus, you can actually zoom in while you're recording your video. That's pretty impressive. So I'm glad they added that. I know it's such a small change, but it makes such a big difference when you're trying to get focus while you're actually recording already. So the camera also has autofocus, but Fuji did give a warning out there, which is kind of worrying some people right now. Fuji said that when shooting in f-log in low light situations, autofocus will probably not work as good. Now, I haven't tested this, but obviously I'm gonna be testing it whenever I get the camera. They gave a fair warning out there. If you're shooting low light, don't shoot f-log and have autofocus on, because you might get some focus hunting. So the question is talking about the old stuff that's in the camera and talking about the new things they added in the camera to make the camera better. Is it worth upgrading from the Fuji X-T3 to the Fuji X-T4? And the price point for the X-T4 is $1,600 body only, so it's a little bit more. I think when the Fuji X-T3 first came out, it was like $1,400, so it's around $200 to $300 more. So yeah, it's gonna be a really tough decision, but as of right now, we really can't say, because you know, I can't just judge it by the white paper, by the spec sheets. I'm gonna have to be able to use this camera and maybe even compare it to the old camera if you guys are interested in that, and then we'll see if it's worth the upgrade. So like always, let me know if you guys have any questions. I will see you guys later.